Cloud Access Security Broker is a third-party agency that performs identity access management, authentication services for an organization that has purchased cloud services, whether they have purchased a public cloud or they have possibly a hybrid cloud where they've extended some of their private cloud into a public cloud offering. So if the organization does not want to conduct authentication on their own, or they need some help performing key escrow or authentication for their users into those cloud resources, they would hire CASP. CASP perform functions like authentication. They'll manage user authentication, user accounts, perform account recovery, password recovery on behalf of an organization. They'll also do what's called key escrow. Well, they'll store cryptographic keys in a secure manner on behalf of the organization. By using a CASP, it ensures one of the key principles of storing cryptographic keys, and that's not to store cryptographic keys at the same location where the cryptographic keys are used to protect information. So if you're encrypting data on a cloud system, you don't want to store your cryptographic keys in the same cloud system, because you might as well, you're only going to have the protection afforded to the keys. Say you apply AES 256 encryption to your database on the cloud, but you store your cryptographic keys on that same cloud with AES 128-bit encryption. Your database is effectively encrypted with AES 128-bit encryption because the keys are only encrypted with AES 128-bit. So all the attacker has to do is decrypt encryption on the keys. They'll have access to keys and they can just unlock your encryption on your database. Let's go into certificates in a little more detail. A certificate is a digital document that contains information on the owner of the certificate or the entity that issued the certificate. So when it comes to public key infrastructure, certificates are very important, and they're used to verify identity and then establish trust between two entities. Public keys are shared by including a certificate with a message. So a user would send an email and they would have a certificate with that email, and that certificate would contain a public key. Certificates are used for digital signatures. They're also used for authentication, and within public key infrastructure, they're used to establish identities and then establish trust. Within a certificate itself, each certificate is assigned a serial number that helps the certificate authority identify it. You'll have the issuer, the subject, the public key if needed, the validity, the usage, what the certificate is intended purposes for. And all this information is contained in the certificate itself. And it's very possible to find certificates through your web browser. Often you'll be issued a transport layer security or TLS certificate when you connect to a website that's using HTTPS or HTTP secure. Here's an example of a certificate used for cyberkrafttraining.com, and you'll see that this certificate was issued by cPanel Incorporated based out of Houston, Texas. And the way I found this certificate, at least when you establish a HTTPS connection, is to just right-click on your the lock icon that you'll see within your browser, and then you can you'll see an information for the certificate. You have a little tab that says more information. You click that, and then you get a pop-up that will explain information about the certificate. You'll view certificate on the little pop-up menu, and you'll get this here with information about the certificate. So it has a serial number, it has a signature algorithm, key size, what was used to encrypt it, RSA, and various information in that regard. So that's the information you can expect to see within a certificate and how you can easily find one if you're establishing a connection through the web. Certificate authorities are entities that issue certificates for websites so that websites can then be trusted by users' browsers. There's many different companies that specialize and are dedicated certificate authorities. The top 4 are Identitrust, DigiCert, Sectigo, and GoDaddy. With here's their market share right here. So Identitrust is clearly number 1. There's many others, like we saw. cPanel was the issuer for the certificate for Cyberkraft training. So Certificate Authority, or CA, is the entity that issues these certificates, and these certificates are what allows for websites to establish HTTPS connections, or transport layer security connections. These connections were formerly known as SSL connections, or Secure Sockets Layer, but Secure Sockets Layer has been phased out. Now transport layer security is being used. The vast majority of websites within the world support HTTPS, and it's almost become a standard nowadays for a website to provide secure communication, even if the website doesn't necessarily need it. Sometimes watching cat memes isn't really something that you need to have encrypted, but still most websites will opt to have HTTPS connections anyway.